So a ceasefire seems to have been reached in Donald Trump's ongoing trade war with two of America's most important allies, Canada and Mexico. That's coming after Trump had two very important conversations with the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, as well as the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. Now, what's happened is we're going to give you a little bit of background into what exactly has been happening in the lead up to this. What exactly Trump said over the last couple of days, these tariffs that were slapped on Mexico as well as Canada, as well as what is going to happen now. So what is happening leading up to this is that Donald Trump has criticized countries like Mexico and Canada for, number one, allowing too much illegal immigration into the United States. Remember that these two borders, the northern border with Canada and the southern border with Mexico, are really key entry points in many ways for a large number of illegal migrants to enter the United States. It is by no means the only way illegal migrants enter the United States. Many of them enter illegally and then overstay their visas, but it is an important pathway for illegal migrants to enter the US. Now, what Trump says is that these countries have not been serious enough about patrolling their borders, and because of that, illegal migrants have been flooding into the United States, and that needs to stop. So he's also criticized Canada and Mexico for allowing the flow of drugs, including fentanyl, which has fueled really the opioid epidemic in the United States over the last couple of years, perhaps last decade, which has killed really thousands of Americans. And his view, Trump's view, is that these countries have not done enough to stop the flow of drugs into the United States, and because of that, these countries need to be punished. They're not dealing with the United States in good faith. So what happened in the lead up in the presidential campaign, and of course what we were hearing in the initial weeks of the Trump administration, was that he was going to level these tariffs against Canada as well as against Mexico. And then, of course, just a couple of days ago, he announced a 25% tariff against both of these countries. Canada and Mexico also then said that they would take countermeasures, which would of course also imply tariffs. Remember, this is not the first time this has happened. During Trump's first term also, he slapped tariffs against countries like Canada. They responded, so we've seen this movie before. And that was followed by the news that actually the tariffs have been paused for a while. They've been paused for a month because Trump has had conversations with both Justin Trudeau of Canada as well as Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, and in both cases, some compromises have been worked out. In the case of Canada, Justin Trudeau has agreed to work with America in terms of setting up a joint US-Canada strike force to take on the flow of illegal drugs into the United States. What's also happened is that there was a border plan that was announced as well, a $1.3 billion border plan that Canada would use to better surveil the border and better control the border as well as the flow of illegal immigrants. So that policy will also be implemented. There is some debate, of course. It depends. We'll have to see how that debate plays out, and more reporting that's coming out on whether these are just plans that already existed and the Canadians are reiterating that these plans already exist to sort of stave off the threat from Trump. But I'm passing on to you that, of course, Justin Trudeau has said that he's also going to be, this previously announced $1.3 billion border plan is also on the table to better address some of America's concerns. Also, he's agreed to appoint a fentanyl czar, right? Fentanyl, remember, the drug that is flowing into the United States that Donald Trump has such a problem with. He is going to be appointing someone to make sure that that problem is dealt with. Also, Canada will be listing cartels, Mexican drug cartels, as terrorist organizations. Remember that Trump had done so in the opening days of his administration. Canada has also said that it will follow through with that policy. So that is what we have so far on the Canadian side of the equation. And of course, tariffs that have been paused. Also with Mexico, what we're hearing is that similar compromises have been agreed to between between Mexico as well as America. America has, in some senses, agreed to pause the tariffs. It's also agreed to work with Mexico on the flow of guns and weapons into Mexico. Mexico, on the other hand, has also agreed to take these concerns seriously. Now, that is where we are at this point in time. And also with Mexico, the tariffs have been paused for 30 days. Now, the response to this has been interesting. Depends on how you're looking at these questions. Of course, there will be more clarity as we go on. But there are two sides to this debate. One side saying, of course, that look, essentially what's happened is you threatened to tariff slap tariffs on your close allies like Mexico, like Canada. and what they're doing is throwing you a couple of early concessions, but and then you'll get distracted and move on. But you behaving in this belligerent fashion is going to turn your allies against you. That's one view. The other view, of course, is that look, action has not been taken, and America needs a better deal from these countries. And what you're seeing from what's happened over the last couple of days is that actually these countries will be a lot more responsive if we agree to use coercive force against them to get what we want. So it's two sides to the debate. It remains to be seen whether this will achieve anything in terms of a broader agreement. Remember that Trump has used force and belligerence to get what he wants in terms of deals. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes not so much, because the view in many capitals may be that Trump is fundamentally very distracted as a leader. He is famously someone who is not very much someone who pays attention to the details of agreements. So if he feels that he's gotten a good deal on paper, he's happy to take it and move on, but it does not actually change anything on the ground. In fact, the Wall Street Journal has acquired a great deal of attention for running an editorial saying this is the dumbest trade war in history, really pointing to how tariffing Mexico as well as Canada is really going to lead to impacts for the broader US economy, because in particularly key sectors like the automotive industry, as they point out, it's not really just the US auto industry, it's a North American industry, because that's how fused the economies and supply chains of American, Mexican and Canadian companies are when it comes to industries like the automotive sector. So again, the idea is how wise is it to really be going around slapping tariffs on most Canadian goods and almost all goods coming in from Mexico into the United States, given that you have such strong relationships with these countries on the economic side. Again, a lot of people are saying that, look, is it just, sure, you want to get things done on the border and you want to get things done on illegal drugs flowing into the United States, but also in a very key sense, the point that has been made by a lot of people is that Donald Trump actually sometimes just sees tariffs as a good in and of themselves. He is not someone who believes that the free and open trading system that has led to bilateral trade deficits with a large number of America's trading partners is always in America's interest. He's had problems with that for a while. He's spoken very openly about the fact that America was at its most prosperous in the late 19th century when tariffs were actually high. And so he's saying that, look, we need to return to that golden age of prosperity. So that is where we are at this point in time. Of course, some people are saying that, look, why has Trump agreed to make these changes? Well, one part of the equation, of course, is certainly that that these countries have agreed to talk to Trump. The other part of the equation is that the US stock market, as well as the Indian stock market, by the way, tanked yesterday. The Dow Jones Index, which is America's stock market, really tanked by 600 points. And what we know about Trump is that he does watch the stock market very closely. And when he was asked about how he was seeing the decline in the stock market, indicated that he did not know much about it, and it was not really featuring much into his thinking, but it is something that we know he cares about. We also know that countries like Canada and Mexico are not without their forms of economic leverage as well. Remember that when your economies are so fused, you can also slap retaliatory tariffs in particular key sectors that give you some leverage and also allow you to pressure certain key political constituencies that allow you to have some leverage over the United States as well. So that's where we are at this point in time. Moving forward now, we're going to have to see how that conversation evolves over the next month. With Mexico particularly, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is going to have some very key conversations. The Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, are also expected to meet with high-level Mexican government delegations to figure out what is going to happen moving forward. If a good deal is available, perhaps it will be taken. Of course, with Canada, also those conversations are going to continue. But again, a very key point that has been raised is that China, the country that, of course, America has made its primary competitor over the last decade or so, has been hit by a 10% tariff, but the Chinese, but the Mexicans as well as the Canadians have been hit by a 25% tariff, and these are countries that are meant to be U.S. partners and U.S. allies. So lots of questions here at this point in time. But again, a lot of people are going to look at this and say that, look, Trump is simply someone who likes brinksmanship. He wants to appear tough. He's used the threat of sanctions, but has used the threat of tariffs, but has not really applied those tariffs. He's really just trying to get these countries to the table. Remember, he did the same with Colombia as well in the past. Just over the last couple of weeks, the Colombian president Gustavo Petro refused to accept migrants back into the United States. He had serious issues with how these illegal migrants were being treated by the US government, and he said, we're not going to take them back if they're going to be treated in this fashion. And Donald Trump responded by threatening tariffs. And then, of course, a compromise agreement was reached. The tariffs were pulled back, and Colombia agreed to send its own, decided to send its own flights to bring its citizens back. So some people are going to look at this and say that, look, he's setting a precedent early on that he's willing to use US economic power to get what he wants. He's willing to be tough with countries in the region to solve the problem of illegal migration. And that's just the way it's going to be. And it's already generating results, as you're seeing with Canada, as you're seeing with Mexico, and as you're seeing with Colombia. So Trump diplomacy works. Now, the opposing side is, of course, going to say that you're annoying a lot of close partners and allies. If you're going to bully people, then what is the difference between you and China? Because you keep talking about the differences between you and China. And of course, what we're going to have to see in the weeks and months to come, and this is really the key point, is how much actually translates into effective action on the border that sorts these crises, that really solves these crises. That is the really, really important thing when it comes to US-Canada relations, US-Mexico relations, how Trump is going to see these countries is, does actually anything change? And like I said, because the sense is in a lot of these capitals that Trump is distracted, he moves from issue to issue, it would be possible to hand Trump an early victory, but then not really that much changes and his focus shifts on that particular issue. So we'll have to see whether these are just early victories that fade over time and don't really generate results, or whether this is a new form of US diplomacy that uses more leverage, more coercive force, and gets what it wants in the end as well. Two very different visions of how Trump's policies will work out, but that's exactly what we're going to keep tracking here at India Today Global. Thanks so much for joining us here for this story, and of course we will keep you absolutely updated on another key story that is developing on the deportation that we're hearing reports coming in of the deportation of Indian illegal migrants from the United States on military flights. That has not been confirmed officially just yet, but we're hearing reports first in Reuters that actually what has happened in the last 24 hours or so is that a US military flight carrying illegal Indian migrants into the United States has left the United States. It will arrive in India, and it is carrying, by some reports, again, these are not confirmed numbers, over 200 illegal Indian migrants. Of course, there were reports earlier that around 18,000 Indian migrants into the United States were set for deportation. India has already said that it is willing to take back illegal migrants and work and cooperate with America on this issue. So that is something we're going to have to see as the weeks progress. But we will come back to you as soon as we have confirmation on this key issue. Thank you so much for watching us here on India Today Global, and we'll keep you absolutely updated on this story.